North America's most valuable startup has just filed for bankruptcy.
Office-sharing company WeWork filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
WeWork saga finally coming to an end. It's been a constant and rapid decline.
After filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
At its peak, WeWork was worth $47 billion. That's more than Airbnb, more than SpaceX, more than any real estate company in the world. And yet, it didn't own a single building. It had no sustainable profit. And the man running it? He thought he was going to become president of the world. This isn't just a startup story. It's a modern mythology. It's about a man who turned office space into a spiritual movement, a charismatic founder who promised to elevate the world's consciousness by renting you a desk for $600. And for a while, it worked. Adam Neumann sold an illusion so powerful that investors, employees, and media outlets all bought in. Hook, line, tequila shot. With messy hair, wild eyes, and Messiah-level confidence, he branded himself as the next Steve Jobs. If Steve Jobs wore linen pants and walked around barefoot in meetings. But underneath the kombucha and community spaces was a company burning $200 million a month. A house of cards built on Silicon Valley buzzwords, SoftBank billions, and the belief that if you dream big enough, the numbers don't matter. And then, reality came knocking. The IPO bombed. The media turned, and the man who once called his wife a strategic thought partner was kicked out of his own company with a billion-dollar golden parachute. This is the story of WeWork's crash, the rise and fall of Adam Neumann, and how startup culture, venture capital, and unchecked ego nearly rewrote the rules of business before collapsing under its own weight. Because in the end, WeWork didn't just rent office space, it rented a fantasy, and when the lease was up, there was nothing left.
We are we, and if we work together, we cannot be stopped.
To understand how WeWork collapsed, you have to understand the man behind it. Adam Neumann wasn't born into Silicon Valley. He didn't come from Stanford or Harvard. He came from a kibbutz, a collective Israeli farming village where everyone shared everything and no one was allowed to stand out. Adam hated it. He was dyslexic, struggled through school, and always felt like he didn't belong. Even as a teenager, he talked about one thing: making it big. In 2001, he moved to New York with a thick accent, long hair, and a backpack full of ambition. He didn't know much about business, but he knew how to talk. And more importantly, he knew how to make people believe. His first startup? Baby knee pads. No, seriously, it was called Crawlers, a company selling padded pants for toddlers learning to walk. It failed, but it didn't matter. Because Adam had discovered something more important than a viable product: he could sell anything, as long as he sold it with conviction. That's when he met Miguel McKelvey, an architect with big ideas and a calm demeanor, the perfect counterweight to Adam's chaotic energy. Together, they founded Green Desk, a co-working space that reused furniture and touted eco-friendliness. It worked, they sold it, and used the money to create something bigger: WeWork. The pitch was simple: rent out stylish office spaces to freelancers and startups, but wrap it in community, energy, and mission. We're not just renting desks, Adam said. We're changing the way people work. We're building a movement. And people believed him. Investors, journalists, employees, they all bought into the story because Adam wasn't pitching office space. He was pitching meaning. He said, we didn't want jobs. We wanted purpose. We didn't want to work. We wanted to belong. And in an age of loneliness, where everything was becoming virtual, he promised real connection, real culture, real we. The irony? For all his talk of we, everything was about him. WeWork was a real estate company, but Adam Neumann, he told the world it was a tech company, and Wall Street, they listened. Because in the 2010, tech was the golden ticket. Uber, Airbnb, Facebook. If you were a tech company, you didn't need profits. You just needed vision. You just needed growth. And Adam, he had vision in spades. WeWork isn't just about renting offices, he said. It's about unlocking human potential in buildings he didn't own. WeWork grew fast, from 1 building to 50, then to 100, then to 400 locations in over 100 cities around the world. Every new city meant new hype, and every new hype meant more funding. $15 million from Benchmark, $150 million from JP Morgan, then SoftBank. And that's when things got dangerous. SoftBank's CEO Masayoshi Son met Adam for 12 minutes. They walked through a WeWork building, talked about vision, energy, changing the world. By the end of the meeting, he handed Adam $4.4 billion. No spreadsheets, no due diligence, just a gut feeling. Crazy, Masa said, but not crazy enough. That one check made WeWork the fastest growing office space company in history, but it also supercharged Adam's delusions. He stopped talking about desks and started talking about opening We Live apartments, launching We Grow schools, creating a We Bank, We Sleep, We Planet. The company even trademarked the word we, and then sold it to itself for $5.9 million. Yes, Adam Neumann sold the word we to WeWork, a company he already owned, and paid himself for it. And the board? They nodded because they weren't investing in real estate. They weren't investing in logic. They were investing in a myth. The myth of the genius founder. The myth that if you just think big enough, you can change the world, even if your business model is bleeding hundreds of millions. Adam wasn't running a company anymore. He was running a mirage. And no one wanted to admit they were lost in the desert. But when a company is built on illusion, it only takes one spotlight to reveal the cracks.
There's an energy that you feel. And it's an energy of people doing their own thing while actually still being part of something greater than themselves. We like to call it the we generation.
WeWork was growing faster than any office company in history. But inside the walls, it wasn't a company. It was a movement. Or at least that's what Adam Neumann told everyone. And when your CEO calls himself a creator of global consciousness, you start to wonder, is this a startup or a cult?
Every single person has a superpower. We all do. You have one and you have one. And I know these two have one.
At WeWork headquarters, Mondays were sacred. Every all-hands meeting started with music, free-flowing tequila, and chants of "Thank God it's Monday." Employees were told they weren't just selling workspaces, they were redefining capitalism, changing the world, creating a community that would save humanity from isolation by renting hot desks in Midtown Manhattan. But behind the slogans, the culture was spiraling. Employees worked 14-hour days. Some slept in WeWork buildings. Mass firings were disguised as culture adjustments. Personal boundaries? Gone. Adam would stroll through the office barefoot, schedule meetings at midnight, and fly across the world on a $60 million private jet, only to fire executives who questioned his spending. He called WeWork a capitalistic kibbutz, but he controlled it like a king. He appointed his wife, Rebecca, as the head of We Grow, a school for children to become conscious leaders. She once fired an employee because she didn't like her energy. Adam surrounded himself with loyalists, people who believed in him more than in the numbers, and the numbers were bad. WeWork was losing $200 million per month. For every $1 it earned, it spent $2. But inside the echo chamber, no one cared, because in the church of we, doubt was betrayal. And Adam, he was the prophet. He told his team that WeWork would live for 300 years, that they would one day put an office on Mars, that the company's mission was more important than money, and people believed, because belief is contagious, especially when it comes with stock options, kombucha, and front row seats to the greatest delusion in startup history. But reality doesn't do cults. Reality does math, and the math was about to expose everything. By 2019, WeWork was everywhere. New York, London, Tokyo, Sao Paulo, hundreds of buildings, thousands of employees, a $47 billion valuation. But here's the problem. None of it made money. Not a cent. The faster WeWork grew, the more cash it burned. And Adam didn't care. Growth wasn't just the goal, it was the religion. His mantra, if we stop growing, we die. Leases signed for buildings they hadn't seen. Lavish renovations with no ROI. Entire floors sat empty just for the aesthetic. At one point, WeWork was losing $219,000 per hour. But behind the scenes, Adam was cashing out. He sold over $700 million worth of stock before the company even went public. Then came the IPO. And this is where the myth unraveled. To go public, a company must file an S-1 document, a detailed report of how the business works, how it makes money, and who's in charge. And when WeWork's S-1 dropped, the world finally saw behind the curtain. $1.9 billion in losses, $47 billion in long-term lease obligations, conflicts of interest everywhere. Adam buying buildings personally, then leasing them to WeWork, private jets, yoga trademarks, and his wife as the spiritual gatekeeper of hiring executives. One section even mentioned Adam's right to pass CEO duties to his wife if he died. Investors were stunned. Wall Street was furious. The media tore it apart. The same press that once called Adam the next Steve Jobs now labeled him a fraud, a fantasist, and a walking red flag. The IPO was pulled. The valuation plummeted from $47 billion to $10 billion and to zero. And suddenly, the cult leader looked less like a visionary and more like a liability. He built the company, he was the brand, he was WeWork, but now, he was the problem. After the IPO disaster, Adam Neumann went from visionary to liability overnight. SoftBank's $4.4 billion investment was in jeopardy, public confidence evaporated, employees were restless, and the board, they were done with the chaos. Adam didn't help himself. He was spotted smoking weed on his private jet, rambling about becoming president of the world, and pitching ideas like colonizing Mars with WeWork pods. Meanwhile, the company was laying off staff, vendors weren't getting paid, and Wall Street, they wanted blood. The board called an emergency meeting. Behind closed doors, they confronted the man they once bowed to, the man they handed billions to, the man who trademarked the word "we" and sold it back to them. And they gave him a choice: resign or be removed. He chose to walk, but not empty-handed. For crashing one of the biggest startups in history, Adam Neumann walked away with a $1.7 billion golden parachute. Let that sink in. He lost investors billions, laid off thousands of employees, wiped out years of work, and still walked out richer than ever. That's the startup game. When you win, you get paid. When you lose, you still get paid. Because Silicon Valley doesn't just reward success, it rewards belief. And Adam Neumann, he was the ultimate believer. When the dust settled, WeWork was no longer a $47 billion unicorn. It was just another struggling real estate company with too many leases, too much debt, and too little purpose. The IPO was dead. The investors were angry. Thousands of employees were laid off. Stock options, worthless. And Adam Neumann, gone. Off to his next venture, flying private, counting billions. SoftBank stepped in, trying to save what was left. They pumped in more money, installed new leadership, and tried to rebrand the company as, an actual business. But the magic was gone. The cult had collapsed. The myth had been exposed. And in 2023, WeWork filed for bankruptcy. A company once valued higher than Airbnb was now worth nothing. So what did it all mean? It meant that growth at any cost was a lie. That charisma, no matter how loud, can't replace numbers. That saying "we" doesn't mean you care, especially when you trademark it and charge your own company to use it. WeWork's fall wasn't just a financial story, it was a cultural moment. It exposed the flaws of startup worship, the danger of betting on people instead of profits, and the willingness of smart investors to ignore red flags if the founder talks fast enough. Because the truth is, Adam Neumann didn't fool them. They wanted to believe him. Because WeWork wasn't just about office space, it was about the illusion of meaning, the idea that capitalism could have a soul, that real estate could feel like a revolution, that work could be spiritual. But when the illusion shattered, there was nothing behind it, just leases, losses, and a very expensive lesson.
And we're just at the middle of all of it right now, but just to explain a little bit more about it. Our bid was $650 million. The bid that seems to be the one that they're considering to confirm at the end of the month is $400 million.
You'd think after blowing $47 billion, Adam Neumann would disappear. Maybe take a quiet retirement, maybe reflect, maybe do anything but this. Instead, in 2022, he came back. Same barefoot swagger, same vision-heavy pitch, same venture capital charm. This time, the company is called Flow. And what's the business model? Real estate. Again, yes. Adam Neumann's grand comeback idea is to revolutionize apartment living. He's pitching community-driven housing for remote workers and renters with wellness features, financial tools, and spiritual meaning. Sound familiar? But here's the twist. Andreessen Horowitz, one of Silicon Valley's most elite venture firms, gave him $350 million to build it. That's their largest single investment ever. Despite the crash, despite the lawsuits, despite the public humiliation, they bet on Adam again. Why? Because in tech, narrative beats memory. The startup world isn't about learning from mistakes. It's about betting on the next big thing, and sometimes on the same guy making the same mistakes. Adam still believes he's changing the world. He still speaks in riddles about consciousness and community. And investors, some of them still nod along. Because no matter how many billions you burn, if you dream loud enough, someone will always listen. That's the legacy of WeWork. Not just a failed business, but a case study in belief, ego, and the cost of charisma. Adam Neumann didn't just build a company. He built a cult of personality. He built a movement around we and walked away with everything. Now, he's back, with flow, with funding, with a second chance. Will it crash again? Or will lightning strike twice? We'll see. But one thing's for sure, in the church of startups, redemption is always for sale. If you thought WeWork was a scam wrapped in a startup pitch, wait until you hear how a sugar-filled sports drink convinced the entire world it was health food. Click now to watch how Gatorade tricked the world into thinking it was healthy. Because billion-dollar deception doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it comes in a bright plastic bottle and calls itself hydration.